Hey, Norm Schoonebeek here, author of Zen N, and if I can get that without glare here. Zen N is a collection of 4 short stories, 3 that I wrote my senior year at college at State University of New York, or SUNY Oneonta, in 1978-79 as a philosophy major, and then later in the early 90s I wrote Brainstorm Blizzard under a slightly different name. And this is just an introduction to give you a little better idea why I think it's a really cool book to have. Whether you have the, personally I would recommend getting the hard copy, the actual physical book, but it is also now available in digital form. So I was really inspired to, it took actually a couple of years for me to decide to put this together, and I worked with the self-publishing company Ex Libris, and they would call me every once in a while, well, you ready to publish it? You're ready to publish it? And I kept putting it off. I wasn't sure, if I wanted to publish these short stories, or 2, what would I call it? What would the title be? Would there be an introduction, or what kind of introduction? And there were also limitations as far as, as a minimum number of pages required. So being that they are short stories and there's just 4 of them, it was like right on the edge of being able to publish it or not being able to publish it. And I really wanted a hardcover book. It didn't meet the requirements for that. So it's just in soft cover, but at some point I would definitely like to have a more, permanent type of hardcover book. And I just recommend you get a copy. These are unique stories, inspired by very strong religious experiences I had when I was in college. In the introduction, it does talk about that a little bit. Originally, when I was in my freshman year of college, I was introduced to transcendental meditation, and I did that a little bit, but at the same time I had a surfing accident and I was knocked unconscious and had a near-death experience where I discovered my immortal spiritual nature, that I wasn't just this body. So I had a really good reality on that, and some pretty cool things about that experience that influenced me to change my major to philosophy later in college. And in my second year of college, I took an introductory or introduction to philosophy course, and then a Buddhism course. And the Buddhism course really talked about the kind of stuff that explained to some degree what I had experienced with a near-death experience, and also related to things that a close friend of my mother had talked to me about. She was the first person that introduced me to Eastern philosophy, and so that really indicated to me Buddhism. It just explained a lot of like the experiences I had, and kind of what I felt I had learned about life with that near-death experience and meditation. So then in my senior year, I was just very inspired to write these stories, and at that time I did feel that there were these higher beings that were kind of channeling down to me to write this stuff. So what I like about them is, I had to read a lot of books for on the Buddhism course that get pretty intellectual and can be kind of heavy reading for the average person. Of these short stories, it's just, you know, entertainment, adventure, whatever. You just read them, and there's no heavy thinking involved. But I think it does a good job of conveying the basic, I wouldn't say ideas or concepts of Buddhism, but just the state of awareness and enlightenment that can be had with Buddhism, without having to get into a whole intellectual discipline or, you know, years of commitment. As you would see in the introduction or on the back cover of the book, I currently am a Dianetics auditor and a Scientologist, and I strongly believe that Scientology is the latest evolution of Buddhism, or you know, something close to that. I think they were both, the Buddhists and L. Ron Hubbard, the founder and developer of Scientology, I think they were both working towards the same goal, and enlightenment of the individual person as a spiritual being, and, you know, truth about life and spiritual freedom. So I just I really think they're closely related. L. Ron Hubbard had a unique background, being able to meet people in the Far East, you know, Tibetan monasteries, and also to be an engineer at one of the first in one of the first classes studying subatomic energy. So he had a great opportunity to take both of those disciplines from the opposite ends of the spectrum, so to speak, and combine them to what we now have as Scientology. So Scientology is can be very technical. I mean, there's thousands of lectures, millions of words have been written and recorded by L. Ron Hubbard in developing Scientology. So that can be a long process and a technical process to become an expert in Scientology, or as a professional Scientology auditor, like I'm trained to be. But what I like about Zen N is I believe it's one of the easiest ways for somebody, you know, just to read these short stories. You could definitely read it in one day or a couple hours. It just flows from one to the other. That's one of the easiest ways, reading Zen N, to help yourself be lifted to a spiritual awareness and understanding of your basic nature and life, without having to get into months and years of technical study. Doesn't do the same stuff as Scientology, which is very technical and much more advanced, which I explain a little bit in the introduction. But for somebody that hasn't studied Buddhism or Scientology, or, you know, might be from another religion or no religion, I just don't know too many other ways to quickly give your own understanding of life and your spiritual nature a very rapid, fast quantum leap in understanding, and something that's just really, you know, simple and entertaining. So I recommend it. Get your own copy, get your friends, family copies. I think I can figure out how to hold this thing. It's a little fine because it reverses watching the image on my computer screen. So turn it one way and it goes the other way. Alright, so that's pretty much it, and enjoy the book.